Thanks everyone for joining and welcome to today's session on how to be water wise. I'm Helen Chambers and I'm joined by my colleague Faye. We both work at an organisation called GEEKI, which stands for Get Informed, Know Your Impact. And together we're both going to delve into the topic of water today, why it matters and what actions we can take to all protect it. And so there's over 2 billion people in the world that lack clean drinking water. And as climate change affects rainfall patterns, it's estimated that 2/3 of the world's population will live in water-stressed countries by 2025. Today, we'll look at why it's so important that we look after our water resources, digging into what we can do to preserve water, reduce waste, and also help clean our water, keep our water clean. Then at the end, we're just going to touch on how we can all take action by taking part in the WaterWise Challenge, which runs throughout October. And we'll just pop into the chat now a link to help you sign up for GEEKI and for the challenge if you haven't done that already. And we can talk to you a little bit more about that in a second. So, water is becoming one of the high risk areas of concern for governments and businesses, and that's really because of water management. So that's really problematic across the globe. Demand for water is increasing, so the UN predicts it will increase by 50% by 2050, and it's already a problem for billions of the most vulnerable. So as I just mentioned before, 2.2 billion people in the world already lack safe drinking water. Just let someone in. Okay. And as well as, increases in population and water demand, climate change is also a leading factor in terms of water. So climate change is leading to warmer temperatures, and the main effects of this in terms of rainfall are more evaporation, which makes things drier and can exacerbate droughts, warmer air, which can hold more water, so wetter areas will be getting wetter. We are definitely already seeing that in the UK. And this moisture in the air will fall as rain, but it won't fall evenly across the planet. So on average, warming is expected to result in dry areas becoming drier and wet areas becoming wetter, especially in the mid and high latitude areas. Now, this is not always true over land, where the effects of warming are a bit more complex, but so land over the equator is likely to be drier, but in general, this is what we'll be seeing and expect to see more of. And the air can generally hold around 7% more moisture for every 1 degree of temperature rise. So a world that is around 4 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial era will have around 28% more water vapor in the atmosphere. And it's further exacerbated by an increase in demand for water. So population growth, lifestyle changes, development, and agricultural practices will contribute to create increased demand for water during the next 20 years. Global water use is likely to increase by around 20 to 50% above current levels by 2050. So we thought it would be good to look at how we are currently using water today. So agriculture is a really big user. So all the crops we need to grow, the animals which need to be watered, agriculture accounts for around 65%, industry around 22%, and then fresh water around 10%. And as demand for water increases over the next 20 years, it's industrial and domestic sectors that are predicted to grow at the fastest pace, but agriculture will remain the largest overall in terms of the consumption of water. And when we think about our own water footprint, we often think about the water we use in our homes, but this is actually a very small amount of our total water usage. And so, sometimes surprising to people that it's only 5% of the water that we use so it's only 5% of our total water footprint is the water that we use in our homes. So that 5% is it's our showers, brushing our teeth, cleaning, dishwashing, toilet, etc. The shower and bath typically around a third of that 5%. Toilet just under a quarter of that. Washing machine is around 9%. And then your dishwashing, plate washing, etc., is a couple of percent as well. So that just helps to give you a bit of a view of what makes up that 5%. And what we drink actually is a tiny proportion of the water that we use as well. So you can see here we drink 2 litres a day, but actually there's 3,000 litres a day that go into the food that we eat. So when we look at our own individual water usage, this is the typical breakdown of how it looks. So between 3 and 5% is in our homes, 5% is in industry. So that's things that we buy, products that we buy, and then between 90% and 93% is in agriculture. So that's mainly our food, but also in things like in cotton that's produced as well in our clothing. And high income economies across the global north and the well-being of their citizens are heavily dependent on water use in other countries to meet their needs and demands for food, clothing, and other goods. That's most European nations and also Japan as well depend on external water use to meet typically from 40 to 80%. And actually, in the Netherlands, it's 94% of their consumption needs when it comes to water. And that includes significant volumes of water used in the global south to produce crops, raw materials, and goods for export as well. Many of these countries already are suffering from water insecurity. That's due to water scarcity, issues with governance, infrastructure, and investment, and of course climate change as well, making the situation worse as we've already covered. And the large volumes of water used within these external water footprints are therefore unsustainable in the long term to keep using them up. So let's look in a little bit more detail on what we do rely on for water in terms of what we eat. So the least water intensive food to grow is typically vegetables, and that's around just over 300 litres per kilo. And then fruit is about 3 times as water intensive as vegetables. Milk slightly higher than fruit at just over 1,000 litres per kilo. Chicken is 4 times that of the fruit water footprint at just over 4,000. And beef is a whopping 15 times the water footprint of fruit at just over 15,000 litres. So we thought we would share with you some really simple steps to help reduce water waste in terms of what we eat. And we'll pop these in the chat as well so that you can have a look at them in more detail. So one of the things that we can do is cutting out our food waste. It's a really good way to make sure that the water that's going into our food is we're making good use of it and it's not getting wasted. So these are just 3 steps to have a look at how we can do that. So one is to try and reduce, to cut back on all of our food waste. So that sounds like quite a big challenge, but there's lots of different ways that we can do that. So the best way to start is to look at what are you throwing away regularly. So look at just choose one item and have a look at what am I throwing away regularly, whether it's vegetables, whether it's meat, and try and focus on that item. Why am I throwing it away? Is it because we're overbuying? Is it because I don't have a look at the best before date and it's going off too quickly? And then have a look at how you can reduce that. So is it to buy less of it? Is it to meal plan better? Is it to freeze it or make things out of it? Make other things out of it. So have a look at those and see what you can start to reduce. Then also sharing food as well. So sharing unused food, we can do that There's some great apps. I know in the UK we've got Olio and Too Good To Go, but I'm sure there's many apps in other countries as well. Please feel free to share those in the chat if you've tried some. So it's a great way for if you wanted to buy some unused food from restaurants or from your local area. If you need something, you can sometimes get things really, really quickly. As quick as pop into the shop for something, just have a quick look on that app and see if one's available in your local area, and also putting things on there as well that are going to go unused. So that's a great way. Also, if you've got a street WhatsApp with your neighbours, or you've got family and friends close, then you can always share unused food with those. And making a meal with leftovers, that's one of our most popular steps that can be used in Geeky. And I think that's because it's a great way. It's a fun way to get rid of your unused food, but also it can save you money as well. So I think that's why it's so popular. And the most popular ones in there, I think there's some in the step that we'll share in the chat. There are some recipes in there, I think, but also smoothies and soups are a really good way to get rid of those leftover fruits and vegetables. So that's my top tip. Okay, and of course, you can reduce your water footprint further by choosing food types with a low water footprint, as I've mentioned before, getting more of those vegetables and fruit in and less of the water intensive foods where possible. Right, I will now hand over to Faye, who will talk to you about a different area of our water footprint.
Great, thanks, Helen. Yes, so for the next few slides, we're going to touch on the fashion industry. And on the next slide is a really, well, I find it very shocking when I first heard this. So you can see how much water is needed to produce just one pair of jeans. 4 months of showers, which, yeah, it's crazy. And often the cotton is grown and the jeans are produced in countries that already are suffering from water scarcity. And the fashion industry has been blamed for a lot of water-related issues across different parts of the world. One example is after decades of diverting water from the Aral Sea to irrigate cotton fields, the world's 4th largest lake in Kazakhstan completely dried up. There are lots of government efforts to try and preserve that happening again in other parts of the world, but yeah, unfortunately the fashion industry does have a bad name for the amount of water that it does use. And unfortunately, the fashion industry can also pollute our waterways if it isn't sort of managed, if the process isn't managed correctly. So 20% of all global water pollution comes from dyeing and textiles treatment. So that could be, dyes that are, put down the drain or sort of run off in the process. But another area as well that's a heavy pollutant is sort of man-made fibres such as polyester. So polyester is a plastic made from fossil fuels and is used in sort of many garments. And so when washed, these garments release microfibers, so plastic microfibers, and 500,000 tons of these microfibers from washing synthetic clothes end up in the ocean every year. And just a single laundry load of polyester clothes can discharge up to 500,000 of these fibres that, in the end up in our food chain, which is harmful to animals, their habitats, but also harmful to people that live near those waterways and need that water for drinking and sanitation as well. So we wanted to highlight some steps that you could take within this challenge to reduce the water footprint of your wardrobe. So repairing your clothes is a really great one to start with, and sometimes you don't realize how easy it is if it's just popping a button back on or repairing a small tear. If you aren't able to repair your own clothes, maybe try and find a friend or family member who's happy to help you with it. As repairing clothes just so that they last 9 months longer reduces the carbon and water footprint by up to 30%, which is brilliant. And there are quite a few brands out there at the moment, such as Patagonia, that offer repair service for their items. So if you have any items that are in need of repair, maybe check the brand to see if they do offer a repair service. But buying secondhand as well, because every piece of new clothing you buy has a water footprint associated with it. And so you can avoid that by buying secondhand clothes. Charity shops are a great place to start, but there's also so many websites out there at the moment that you can buy secondhand or even new items that people don't need anymore. So in the UK, Vinted is probably the biggest one at the moment, but there are other sites like eBay or Pre-Loved as well. And then following on from that step, you could donate your old clothes to charity. This will help textile waste because often textile waste is sent straight to landfill and it can take up to 200 years to decompose. So maybe you may want to try one of those steps this month. But as well as the issues we face around water scarcity and the supply of water, there are lots of things we can do to keep our water systems clean. So I know it can feel sort of really overwhelming, that you sort of don't know where to start, but we have lots of steps that Helen's dropped into the chat. So yeah, maybe just try two or three of these this month, and hopefully we've given you some ideas today of ones that you could take. So just to add some context to how important it is to keep our water clean. Every day, 2 million tonnes of sewage is drained into our world's waters, and globally, at least 2 billion people use a drinking water source that's contaminated. So it's definitely something that we all need to do about it, and it's all of our responsibilities. And there are many ways in which our waterways can become polluted, but we wanted to highlight some of the main ones here. So fertilizers, as Helen said, agriculture is such a huge area for water use, and farms can discharge large quantities of chemicals, waste, manure into waterways, which in turn affects ecosystems and human health. Pesticides, these are made to kill pests, but can often contaminate surface waters, which can be extremely harmful. And in the EU, which is one of the most highly regulated areas, 10 to 25% of sites that are monitored have above the threshold of pesticides that is deemed safe. So chemicals at home, lots of household cleaners, detergents from washing our cars, improper disposal of paint, weed killers, for example, are all ways in which chemicals can get into our waterways directly from our own homes. As previously mentioned, the textile production is responsible for around 20% of clean water pollution. And the last one we wanted to highlight here is contaminated water. So contaminated water and poor sanitation is linked to the transmission of diseases such as cholera and typhoid, and it's estimated that 1 million people die each year from diarrhea as a result of unsafe drinking water. So there are some steps that we wanted to highlight that you may want to try at home this month. So as mentioned before, chemical use at home, you could try to opt for more natural products or try making your own. So within that step on Geeky, there's some sort of great brands that you could try that definitely have fewer of those harmful chemicals in. The same applies to sort of your bathroom, or when you're thinking about buying a personal care item. Maybe next time you need to buy one, maybe choose one that avoids some of those sort of key chemicals. Or if you're thinking about your garden, maybe try to use a natural weed killer or pest control. I know there's some really sort of yeah, great ideas out there of how to reduce pests in your garden without using nasty chemicals. So again, just some ideas for you to try. And something that we do find that helps is if you try to sort of plan maybe one thing you want to change in your daily life. So write down the what, the when, and the where. Try and be specific about what you want to achieve, and then that can really help you build that habit. So maybe that's something you would also like to try this month. So yeah, just a couple more bits from me, but we'd really love to hear if you have any favourite water saving tips. So yeah, do pop them in the chat if you have any, and Helen and I can go through them later. So it's really great to hear what people are doing at home or at work to save water.
Already seen Cheryl's posted to say
Oh
that
yes,
they've got a recipe to make a low toxic washing powder, which sounds awesome. Please post it in there. If I've
yeah,
never heard of anyone making
definitely.
their own washing powder. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Yes. Um, yes, so do keep those coming. Thanks, Cheryl. And finally from me, it's really amazing to see the impact when a community takes steps together. So why not choose 2 or 3 steps to take on this month? So yeah, I'll hand back to you, Helen, to give more information of how people could get involved in the challenge.
Thank you very much. Yes, so this month we have got a month of activity running with our WaterWise challenge, and it's all about us learning a bit more about the topic and just taking action ourselves so that we can feel part of the solution. And as you can see from the steps, they range from things like turning the tap off when we're brushing our teeth to save some water, right through to having a more vegetarian diet, and trying that with a challenge. So lots of different things that we can try, and hopefully something for everyone. There's also lots of blogs, videos, and infographics, things like that, that you can learn more information from. So please do check out the site. You can log in. I think Faye's going to drop it into the chat. You can log in and either sign up to an account or join your account in Geeky and just have a look at some of those steps and choose something that works for you. Not, everybody is different. Some people might just find one step and really go for it this month, and other people might want to take lots and get really excited. So everybody's different, but as soon as you go in and take a step, you are on that leaderboard. So do come back throughout the month and have a look, and we'll be sharing updates on the leaderboard throughout the month, just for that bit of healthy competition. So as Faye mentioned, choosing 3 steps can be a great way to kick off, and also sharing with anybody to double your impact. So if you can share the challenge this month with anybody in your team, or anybody that you come across that might be interested, then it's a great way to be able to double our impact. And we just thought we'd give you just 1 minute now if you wanted to log in and take some action. Then there's a minute of time that we've allocated of this session, just that you can go in, choose one of those steps that we've put into the chat, or go in and have a look in your account. There's lots of steps in there. There's some that we've managed to put in that relate to your WaterAid campaign that's running this month as well. So you'll find lots of steps in there that are really relevant to everybody at Hogan Lovells as well. So I'm handing back to Rachel, I think, who's just going to close off today's session, if she's still there.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, thank you so much, Helen and Faye, for leading this session. It's been really interesting and helpful, particularly for me, I think. Yeah, water's something which you don't always see when it's relating to products and isn't direct. And I would also like to thank everyone for coming, and for a very good turnout today. We will continue running these webinars, hopefully throughout the rest of the year and on to next year. Please do download the Geeky app if you haven't already. The link is in the chat. It's also on the HL Global sustainability page if you want to forward it to anyone else. And as Helen's just mentioned, it's WaterAid Fundraiser Month this October, and hence we have chosen the water theme for this month. There are some steps relating to the fundraiser you can commit to on the platform, so you can get involved in both challenges at the same time. And I believe the WaterAid fundraiser starts on the 7th, so you've still got time to sign up as individuals or teams if you want to take some action on water, the global impact. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.